Major Lauren Cole's hands gripped the controls of her F-15E Strike Eagle as warning lights painted the cockpit red. 40,000 feet above hostile territory, her aircraft was dying, hydraulics failing, systems sparking. But the real terror wasn't her mechanical crisis. On her radar screen, multiple missiles streaked upward through the darkness, their targeting systems locked onto something far more precious than her life, a formation of transport planes carrying humanitarian supplies to thousands of desperate refugees below. Before we dive into Lauren's incredible story of courage at 40,000 feet, drop a comment below. Where in the world are you watching from today? The hangar smelled like jet fuel and morning coffee. Major Lauren Cole walked around her F-15E Strike Eagle, her boots clicking against the concrete floor. She'd done this inspection thousands of times, but today felt different. The new electronic warfare pod hung beneath the aircraft's belly like a metal tumor. "Morning, Major." Staff Sergeant Martinez appeared with a clipboard. "She's ready for you." Fuel's topped off, systems green across the board. Lauren nodded and ran her hand along the aircraft's wing. The metal felt cold under her fingers. "Any hiccups with the new equipment?" "Nothing major. Few warning lights during startup, but tech says that's normal with prototype gear." She'd heard that line before. In 15 years of flying, normal usually meant we don't know what's wrong yet. But orders were orders. The briefing room buzzed with quiet conversation. Pilots clustered around coffee cups and mission folders. Lauren grabbed her usual spot in the third row and opened her tablet. Today's mission parameters filled the screen: electronic warfare training exercise, flight altitude 40,000 feet, test zone near the Azerbaijani border. Colonel Henderson walked to the front and the room fell silent. "Gentlemen, ladies. Today we're testing the new ALQ-99 jamming system. Major Cole will be our primary test platform." He clicked his remote and a map appeared on the wall screen. Simple mission profile. Cole takes the Strike Eagle up to 40,000, activates the jamming pod, and runs interference patterns for 2 hours. A young captain raised his hand. "Sir, any opposition expected?" "Negative. This is pure electronic warfare testing. No live fire, no combat scenarios. Just see if our new toy can jam enemy radar systems without frying our own equipment." Lauren studied the map. The test zone sat uncomfortably close to contested airspace, but that was the point. Real-world conditions meant real-world proximity to potential threats. "Questions?" Henderson looked around the room. "Major Cole, you have concerns?" She stood up. "Sir, the briefing mentions recent increased activity in the region. Are we coordinating with other friendly forces?" "Good question. There's a humanitarian convoy running supplies to refugee camps about 50 miles south of your test zone. Transport aircraft, heavily loaded, flying low and slow. They've been cleared for the mission window, so they shouldn't interfere with your electronic testing." Lauren made a note on her tablet. Transport planes meant civilian crews, aid workers, medical supplies. People who couldn't defend themselves if things went sideways. "Anything else?" Henderson waited. "All right, people. Weather's clear, visibility unlimited. Let's make this a smooth operation." The briefing room emptied slowly. Lauren lingered, studying the map one more time. Something about the mission profile nagged at her, but she couldn't put her finger on it. Having second thoughts? Colonel Henderson approached her. "No, sir. Just being thorough." He smiled. "Cole, you're my best electronic warfare specialist. If anyone can make this new system work, it's you. But I get it, you're what, 42? Got kids in college?" "Yes, sir. Emma's studying engineering at Georgia Tech. Michael's pre-med at Duke. Smart kids. They get that from their mom." Henderson's expression grew serious. "Look, Lauren, I know you've been thinking about retirement. This mission could be a nice way to wind down your career, test some new equipment, file a report, call it a day." Lauren closed her tablet. "Sir, I'm not looking to wind down anything. I'm here to do the job. That's what I like to hear. But remember, this is just a training exercise. No heroes required. She gathered her flight gear and headed for the door. The colonel's words echoed in her mind as she walked back toward the hangar. No heroes required. In her experience, the missions that started with those words usually ended up needing heroes the most. The morning sun painted the runway gold. Lauren's F-15E sat waiting, its twin engines already warming up. Her weapons systems officer, Captain Torres, was climbing into the rear cockpit. "You ready for this, Torres?" Lauren called up. "As ready as anyone can be with experimental gear, Major. Let's see what this thing can do." Lauren pulled on her helmet and climbed the ladder. The cockpit felt familiar, comforting even. Switches and displays surrounded her like old friends. She strapped in and began her final checks. "Tower, this is Hawk 17 requesting clearance for departure." "Hawk 17, you're cleared for takeoff." "Runway 27, winds light and variable." Lauren pushed the throttles forward and felt 29,000 pounds of thrust push her back into her seat. The Strike Eagle rolled down the runway, gathering speed. At rotation speed, she pulled back on the stick. The aircraft lifted smoothly into the morning sky, climbing toward 40,000 feet and whatever waited in the test zone ahead. The F-15E climbed through 20,000 feet, its twin Pratt & Whitney engines humming with steady power. Lauren watched the altitude tape spin upward on her heads-up display while Captain Torres ran through the electronic warfare systems checklist behind her. Primary radars painting targets at 200 miles, Torres reported through the intercom. Navigation systems show us on course for the test zone. ETA 23 minutes. Lauren adjusted her oxygen mask and scanned the instrument panel. Everything looked normal, fuel flow steady, hydraulic pressure in the green, flight controls responding smoothly. The morning sun streamed through the canopy, warming her shoulders through the flight suit. "Talk to me about this new jamming pod," she said. "What exactly are we strapped down there?" Torres flipped through his technical manual. ALQ-99 Electronic Attack System. Supposed to jam enemy radar frequencies across multiple bands simultaneously. The tech guys say it's like having a dozen different jammers rolled into one package. And the side effects? Well, that's what we're here to find out. Could interfere with our own systems if the frequency separation isn't perfect. Might also create some interesting electromagnetic signatures that show up on enemy scopes. Lauren nodded. In electronic warfare, every action created reactions. Jam the enemy's radar, and you might accidentally jam your own navigation system. Create electronic noise to hide your position, and you might make yourself visible to different sensors. Passing 30,000 feet, she announced. The air outside was thin enough now that a breach in the cockpit would kill them in minutes. Below, the landscape spread out like a detailed map, farmland, rivers, distant mountains marking the border regions. "I've got company," Torres said. His voice carried a hint of curiosity. "Picking up multiple aircraft signatures about 100 miles southeast. Large, slow-moving formation." Lauren checked her tactical display. 5 blips crawled across the screen at low altitude and reduced speed. "That'll be the humanitarian convoy Henderson mentioned. Transport planes loaded with supplies for the refugee camps. Heavy cargo by the look of their flight profile. They're really struggling to maintain altitude." She could picture those aircraft, probably old C-130 Hercules or similar transports, maxed out with medical supplies, food, blankets, and water purification equipment. Civilian crews flying dangerous missions to help people who'd lost everything. The kind of flying that didn't make headlines but saved thousands of lives. "Hawk 17, this is Control." The radio crackled in her headset. "You're approaching Test Zone Alpha. Cleared to begin electronic warfare systems activation." "Copy, Control. Beginning systems activation now." Lauren reached for the switches that would bring the ALQ-99 online. "Torres, you ready back there?" "All set, Major. Frequencies mapped, interference patterns loaded. Let's light this candle." she flipped the first switch and immediately felt a subtle vibration through the aircraft. The jamming pod was drawing power from both engines, creating an electromagnetic field that would theoretically confuse enemy radar operators for hundreds of miles. System 1 active, Torres reported. I'm seeing good power levels, clean frequency separation. So far, so good. Lauren activated System 2 and watched her displays flicker briefly before stabilizing. A new icon appeared on her tactical screen, an expanding circle representing the jamming field they were projecting. Wow, Torres whistled softly. Major, take a look at your radar warning receiver. She glanced at the small screen that monitored threats in their vicinity. Instead of the usual empty display, it showed dozens of faint contacts appearing and disappearing like digital ghosts. Is that normal? She asked. According to the manual, yes. We're creating so much electronic noise that our own sensors are picking up false returns. It's like trying to listen to a whisper in a thunderstorm. Lauren didn't like it. The radar warning receiver was designed to alert them to incoming missiles and hostile aircraft. If it was cluttered with false signals, they might miss a real threat until too late. System 3 coming online, she announced, flipping the third switch. This time, the vibration was stronger and her navigation display flickered for several seconds before clearing. Major, I'm getting some weird readings back here. Torres's voice carried a note of concern. Our electronic signature just got a lot bigger and more complex. Instead of looking like a single F-15E, we probably appear as multiple aircraft to anyone watching. That could be good or bad, depending on who was doing the watching. Multiple aircraft might look like a formation flight or a coordinated attack. A single aircraft running electronic warfare systems might look like a reconnaissance mission or a prelude to something larger. Control, this is Hawk 17, Lauren radioed. Systems activation complete. All 3 jamming pods are online and functioning within parameters. Copy, Hawk 17. Continue with test pattern alpha for the next 60 minutes. Maintain current altitude and heading. Lauren settled back in her seat. For the next hour, they would fly straight lines and gentle turns while the ALQ-99 did its work. Her job was to keep the aircraft stable and let the electronics specialists on the ground analyze the results. Beautiful morning for flying, Torres observed. Clear sky, unlimited visibility. Almost too peaceful. She had to agree. At 40,000 feet, the world below looked serene and manageable. Cities appeared as small clusters of buildings, roads became thin lines, and even the contested border regions looked harmless from this altitude. But Lauren had learned not to trust peaceful moments in military aviation. The calm before the storm wasn't just a saying, it was a warning. Her radar warning receiver chirped once, softly. A brief contact, there and gone so quickly she might have imagined it. She watched the screen, but nothing appeared. You catch that? She asked Torres. Catch what, Major? She studied her instruments one more time. Everything looked normal. Maybe the new jamming system was creating more interference than expected. Maybe her imagination was playing tricks after 15 years of watching for threats that sometimes materialized and sometimes didn't. Nothing, she said. Just thought I heard something. But deep in her gut, Lauren Cole knew that something was starting to go wrong. Lauren watched the numbers on her fuel flow indicator jump erratically. For a moment they spiked high, then dropped below normal, then returned to steady. She tapped the glass face of the gauge with her gloved finger. Torres, you seeing any power fluctuations back there? Negative, Major. All systems showing stable power draw. Why? Fuel flow's dancing around. Probably nothing, but keep an eye on your displays. She made a mental note to mention it in her post-flight report. New electronic systems sometimes created interference with other aircraft sensors. The ALQ-99 was pumping out enormous amounts of electromagnetic energy, enough to disrupt radar systems hundreds of miles away. A little interference with fuel sensors seemed almost inevitable. The radar warning receiver chirped again. This time, Lauren was ready for it. She watched the small screen carefully and caught a brief flicker, something painting them with search radar from the northeast. Torres, I've got intermittent radar contact bearing 045. You picking up anything? Negative contact. Could be ground-based early warning radar. We're close enough to the border that their systems might be reaching out to see what we're doing up here. Lauren wasn't convinced. Early warning radars operated on predictable schedules with steady beam patterns. This contact felt different, shorter bursts, irregular timing, like someone was trying to get a lock without being detected. Control, this is Hawk 17, she radioed. I'm showing possible radar contact to the northeast. Can you confirm any known traffic in that area? The response took longer than usual. Hawk 17, Control. We show no scheduled traffic in that sector. Continue your mission profile. She didn't like the hesitation in the controller's voice. Military air traffic controllers knew where every aircraft in their sector was supposed to be, down to the minute. When they said no scheduled traffic, it usually meant someone was where they weren't supposed to be. Major, I'm getting some strange readings from the jamming pod. Torres's voice carried a note of concern. Power levels are fluctuating, and I'm seeing interference patterns I wasn't expecting. Lauren glanced at her engine instruments. Both turbofans were running smoothly, but the electrical system was working harder than normal. The ALQ-99 was drawing more power than the specifications indicated. Define strange, she said. Instead of jamming in neat, separate frequency bands like it's supposed to, the system's creating harmonics. It's like throwing a rock in a pond, the ripples are spreading way beyond where we intended. That explained the erratic readings on our instruments. Electronic harmonics could interfere with anything that used electrical signals, which in a modern fighter aircraft meant almost everything. Can you dial it back? I can try. She heard Torres flipping switches and adjusting controls. There. That should reduce the harmonic interference. The radar warning receiver immediately lit up like a Christmas tree. Instead of occasional chirps, it now showed constant activity from multiple directions. What the hell? Lauren stared at the display. Threat indicators surrounded her aircraft from every compass point. Major, our jamming reduction just made us a lot more visible to anyone who's looking, Torres explained. The harmonics were actually providing some protection by creating electronic noise around our position. So our choices are fly blind with the jamming on full, or light ourselves up like a beacon with it turned down. That's about the size of it. Lauren's headset crackled with radio chatter from other aircraft. She recognized call signs from the humanitarian convoy Torres had spotted earlier. Heavy headwind reducing our ground speed. Fuel consumption higher than planned, but we're still good for the mission. Refugee camp reports they're down to 2 days of medical supplies. She switched to the convoy's frequency. Transport flight, this is Hawk 17. How are you doing down there? Hawk 17, this is Mercy flight lead. We're maintaining course but fighting some weather. Appreciate you keeping an eye on us. Lauren looked at her weather radar. Clear skies in all directions. Whatever was slowing down the transport aircraft wasn't meteorological. Mercy flight, confirm your position and heading. We're about 40 miles south of you, heading 270 at 8,000 feet. 5 aircraft in formation, carrying medical supplies and water purification equipment for the camps. 40 miles south put them directly in the path of whatever was painting Lauren's aircraft with search radar. If someone was preparing to engage air targets in this region, the slow-moving, defenseless transport planes would be sitting ducks. Torres, bring the jamming pod back up to full power. Major, that's going to blind our threat warning systems again. I know. Do it anyway. She felt the vibration increase as the ALQ-99 returned to maximum output. Her radar warning receiver went quiet, but she knew the electronic noise was now spreading across hundreds of square miles. Major, why are we protecting the transports with our jamming? Torres asked. Because someone's been tracking us for the last 10 minutes, and those humanitarian flights are flying right through the same airspace. Her hydraulic pressure warning light flickered on briefly, then went dark. Lauren stared at the instrument panel. The light had been on for maybe 2 seconds, long enough to register, not long enough to be sure she'd actually seen it. Torres, did you see a hydraulic warning just now? Negative, Major. All systems showing green back here. Maybe it was electromagnetic interference from their own jamming system. Maybe it was a real problem developing in the aircraft's flight control systems. In either case, she needed to know which one. Control, this is Hawk 17 requesting permission to cycle hydraulic systems for diagnostic check. Hawk 17, negative on system cycling. Continue mission profile as briefed. Lauren frowned. Denying a pilot's request to check potentially failing systems wasn't standard procedure. Unless Control knew something they weren't sharing. Her radar warning receiver chirped one more time. A long, steady tone that meant someone had achieved a targeting lock on her aircraft. Torres, we've got a problem. I see it, Major. Someone just lit us up with fire control radar. Lauren's hands moved automatically to the defensive systems controls. 15 years of training kicked in as her aircraft transformed from a test platform into a combat machine ready to defend itself. Control, this is Hawk 17. We are being painted by hostile fire control radar and request immediate vectors out of the area. The radio remained silent. Below them, 5 transport aircraft continued their slow flight toward people who desperately needed what they carried. And somewhere in the electronic maze of signals and interference, someone was preparing to turn this routine training mission into something far more dangerous. The hydraulic warning light flickered on again, stayed longer this time, then went dark. Lauren Cole realized she was about to find out just how much her 15 years of experience were really worth. Lauren felt the stick go mushy in her hands. What should have been crisp, immediate response from the flight controls now felt like stirring thick honey. She pushed the stick left, the aircraft banked slowly, reluctantly, like it was fighting her every input. Torres, I've got degraded flight control response. Check your hydraulic readings. Major, I'm showing primary hydraulic system at 60% and dropping. Secondary system is holding steady at normal pressure. 60% wasn't catastrophic yet, but it was heading in the wrong direction fast. In an F-15E, hydraulic systems powered everything that kept them alive: flight controls, landing gear, weapon systems. Lose hydraulics completely, and the aircraft became a 20-ton glider with the aerodynamic properties of a brick. Her radar warning receiver screamed to life. Multiple tones overlapped each other in a cacophony of threat alerts. Lauren's eyes snapped to the display and her blood went cold. 6 distinct contacts had achieved radar lock on her aircraft simultaneously. Torres, tell me you're seeing this. I count 6 separate fire control radars, Major. Multiple launch platforms from different positions. Someone just coordinated a very sophisticated trap. Lauren's training kicked in automatically. She rolled the aircraft hard right, pulling 4 Gs despite the sluggish controls. The missile launch warning tone filled her headset, a steady, urgent beep that meant death was already in the air. Chaff and flare, she called out, pressing the countermeasures button. Bundles of radar-reflecting strips and heat-generating flares scattered from the aircraft like metallic confetti, designed to confuse incoming missiles. First salvo airborne, Torres reported. I count 3, no, make that 5 missiles inbound from different positions. Lauren pulled the aircraft into a steep climb, trading speed for altitude. The hydraulic system groaned under the stress, and her warning light flickered from yellow to red. Primary hydraulic system at 30%, Torres called. Major, we need to think about getting this bird on the ground. Not yet. Lauren rolled inverted and pulled the nose down, diving toward the deck. Torres, what's the position of that humanitarian convoy? Mercy flight is 30 miles south-southeast, still maintaining course toward the refugee camps. She did the math in her head. The same radar systems that had locked onto her aircraft were positioned to intercept the transport planes. If she ran for safety now, those defenseless aircraft would fly straight into a killing field. "Control, this is Hawk 17, she radioed. "We are under active missile attack and need immediate support. Also advise Mercy Flight to divert from current course." Static filled her headset. Then a voice she didn't recognize. "Hawk 17, control is temporarily unavailable. Continue mission as briefed." "Like hell," Lauren muttered. She switched to the humanitarian convoy's frequency. "Mercy Flight, this is Hawk 17. You need to change course immediately. Active surface-to-air missile sites in your path." "Hawk 17, we copy your transmission, but our orders are to continue to the refugee camps. People are dying down there without these supplies." The lead pilot's voice was calm, professional, but Lauren heard the fear underneath. Civilian crews and transport aircraft had no defense against guided missiles except prayer and hope. "Mercy Flight, I'm serious. Turn south now." "Major," Torres interrupted, "missiles 1 and 2 are 20 seconds out. We need to maneuver." Lauren pulled into a vertical climb, pushing the failing hydraulic system beyond its limits. The stick felt like dead weight in her hands as the primary system pressure dropped to 15%. "Secondary hydraulics are taking the full load," Torres reported. "If we lose the backup system, we're done." The first missile detonated 300 feet behind them, close enough that Lauren felt the shockwave through the airframe. Shrapnel rattled against the aircraft's skin like angry hail. "Miss," Torres called. "But they're correcting for our flight path." Lauren rolled left just as the second missile streaked past their position. It continued on its trajectory, and her heart stopped as she realized where it was heading. "Torres, that missile's tracking toward Mercy Flight." "I see it. 30 miles and closing on their position." Lauren's mind raced through options. The transport aircraft were too slow to evade, too low to climb out of range, and completely defenseless. In 2 minutes, 5 aircraft full of medical supplies and humanitarian aid would become fireballs in the sky. Unless she could draw the missile off target. "Major, what are you doing?" Torres's voice rose as Lauren banked toward the oncoming missile. "Our jamming pod is still creating electronic interference, right?" "Yes, but..." "And our hydraulic failure is throwing out all kinds of electromagnetic signatures from damaged systems?" "Major, you're not thinking what I think you're thinking." Lauren pushed the throttles to military power and aimed her aircraft directly at the missile targeting the humanitarian convoy. "Torres, I need you to cycle the jamming pod between maximum power and standby. Create as much electronic noise as possible. That's going to make us the biggest, brightest target in the sky. That's the idea." She watched her hydraulic pressure continue dropping, 12%, 10%, 8%. The flight controls were barely responding now, but she only needed them to work for another 60 seconds. "Mercy Flight, this is Hawk 17, she radioed. Continue your mission. You're clear to proceed." "Hawk 17, we don't understand." "Sensors show a missile heading directly for our formation." Lauren watched the missile's track bend toward her aircraft as her electronic interference confused its guidance system. The weapon was designed to hit the largest, most threatening radar signature in its vicinity. Right now, that was her dying F-15E with its failing systems and maximum power jamming pod. "Not anymore," she said quietly. "Major," Torres's voice was steady despite the circumstances, "secondary hydraulic pressure just dropped to critical levels. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it fast." Lauren looked at her instrument panel. Red warning lights glowed like angry eyes across every system display. Her aircraft was dying around her, but it still had enough life left for one more act of defiance. The missile adjusted course again, now locked solidly onto their position. "Torres, hold on to something. This is going to get rough." Behind them, 5 transport aircraft continued their flight toward people who needed what they carried more than they needed their own safety. Ahead of them, death approached at 3 times the speed of sound. Lauren's aircraft shuddered as the secondary hydraulic system finally gave up. The flight controls went completely dead in her hands for 3 terrifying seconds before the manual reversion system kicked in. Now she was flying on cables and pulleys, like a pilot from 50 years ago. Torres, how much electronic noise are we putting out right now? Major, we're lighting up every radar screen within 200 miles. Between our failing systems throwing off electromagnetic interference and the jamming pod at maximum power, we look like a flying electronics warehouse that's on fire. That gave Lauren an idea. A crazy, desperate idea that might just work. Torres, listen to me carefully. I need you to start cycling our systems on and off in a specific pattern. Make our electronic signature as chaotic and unpredictable as possible. Major, that could cause more system failures. We're already failing. The question is whether we fail usefully or just fail. Through her canopy, Lauren could see the missile approaching, a white contrail drawing a straight line through the blue sky directly toward their position. Behind them, 3 more missiles had launched and were making course corrections based on their targeting radars. Mercy Flight, what's your current position? She radioed. Hawk 17, we're 25 miles south of you, maintaining course and altitude. Are you sure about that missile threat? Lauren watched the first missile adjust its trajectory again, pulled toward her aircraft's increasingly erratic electronic signature. Trust me on this one, Mercy Flight. Keep flying straight and level. Major, I don't understand your plan, Torres said. How does making ourselves a bigger target help anyone? Modern missiles track the largest, most threatening radar return in their engagement envelope. Right now, that's us. But if we can confuse their guidance systems with enough electronic chaos, they might lose lock entirely. Or they might blow us out of the sky. There's that possibility too. Lauren fought the manual flight controls, trying to maintain altitude as the aircraft wanted to roll left. Without hydraulic assist, every input required significant physical strength. Sweat beaded on her forehead inside her helmet. Secondary system pressure is 0, Torres reported. We're flying on manual reversion and backup electrical power only. The missile was 15 seconds out. Lauren could see its fins adjusting as the guidance system tried to maintain lock on their chaotic electronic signature. Torres, shut down the jamming pod for 3 seconds, then bring it back online at 70% power. Major, that's going to. Do it now. The electronic noise around their aircraft disappeared for 3 seconds. The missile, suddenly deprived of the massive radar return it had been tracking, began searching for alternative targets. Its guidance system found the humanitarian convoy's steady, predictable radar signatures 25 miles away. Now bring the jamming back online, full power, and activate our transponder beacon. Torres flipped the switches. Their electronic signature blazed back to life, now enhanced by the aircraft's identification beacon broadcasting their location to anyone listening. The missile swung back toward them like a compass needle finding magnetic north. 10 seconds to impact, Torres called. Lauren pushed the aircraft into a steep dive, trading altitude for speed despite the manual controls fighting her every input. The missile followed, its terminal guidance system locked onto their position. At the last second, she pulled into a sharp climbing turn. The sudden maneuver, combined with their electronic countermeasures, confused the missile's proximity fuse. It detonated 50 feet below their aircraft instead of making direct contact. The explosion threw the F-15E sideways like a leaf in a windstorm. Lauren felt the aircraft roll inverted as fragments peppered the fuselage. Her left engine fire warning light illuminated. Engine fire, number 1, she called, going through the emergency checklist automatically. Shutting down left engine. Major, we've got bigger problems. I count 3 more missiles inbound, different launch points. Lauren looked at her tactical display. The remaining missiles were approaching from multiple directions, their guidance systems all locked onto her aircraft's unmistakable electronic signature. Mercy Flight, how are you doing down there? Hawk 17, we're maintaining course. Whatever you're doing up there, it's working. Our threat warning receivers are quiet. That was the point. Every missile in the area was now focused on her dying aircraft instead of the defenseless transports below. Torres, can you create a false multiple target signature? I can try. If I cycle our systems in the right pattern, we might look like a formation of aircraft instead of a single plane. Do it. Make us look like the biggest, most dangerous target they've ever seen. Lauren's single remaining engine began showing signs of stress. Oil pressure was dropping and exhaust gas temperature was climbing toward the red line. Between the missile fragments and the strain of single-engine flight with manual controls, the F-15E was dying around them. Multiple target simulation active, Torres reported. We should appear as 4 separate aircraft in close formation to anyone tracking us. The 3 remaining missiles adjusted course, converging on their position from different angles. Standard tactics for engaging a fighter formation, attack from multiple directions simultaneously to prevent evasive maneuvering. Mercy Flight, what's your ETA to the refugee camps? 15 minutes to touchdown, Hawk 17. We can see the landing strip ahead. 15 minutes. Lauren looked at her engine instruments and hydraulic gauges. She didn't have 15 minutes of flying time left in her aircraft. Torres, how long can we keep this electronic deception running? Major, our electrical system is failing. I've got maybe 5 more minutes of full power to the jamming pod, then we're going dark. That's not long enough. Major, we've done what we can. Those transport planes are going to make it to the refugee camps because of what we've accomplished here. Maybe it's time to think about getting ourselves on the ground. Lauren watched the 3 missiles closing from different directions. In 2 minutes, they would reach her position simultaneously. Even if she could evade 1 or 2, the third would find its target. But 15 minutes was what the humanitarian convoy needed to complete their mission. 15 minutes to deliver medical supplies that would save hundreds of lives. 15 minutes to prove that sometimes the greatest victory came from knowing what you were willing to sacrifice. Torres, I need you to do something for me. Name it, Major. Call my kids. Tell them their mom was thinking about them. Major, what are you planning? Lauren looked ahead at the empty sky stretching toward the horizon. Somewhere out there, 5 transport aircraft continued their flight toward people who desperately needed what they carried. And behind her, 3 missiles approached with mathematical precision. I'm planning to buy Mercy Flight 15 more minutes. The missiles were 60 seconds out and closing fast. Lauren's remaining engine began to sputter. The exhaust gas temperature gauge climbed into the red zone as her single turbofan struggled to keep the damaged F-15E airborne. 30 seconds until the 3 missiles reached her position. Major, I'm losing power to the jamming pod, Torres reported. Electrical system can't sustain maximum output much longer. How long do we have? Maybe 90 seconds of full electronic signature, then we go dark. Lauren did the math. The missiles would reach her in 30 seconds. If she could evade them somehow, she'd have 60 more seconds of electronic deception to protect the humanitarian convoy. After that, her aircraft would become electronically invisible, but it would also lose the ability to draw enemy fire away from the transport planes. Torres, on my mark, shut down everything except basic flight controls. Make us disappear from their screens. Major, if we shut down now, those missiles might reacquire the transport aircraft. Trust me. Lauren watched the missiles converge on her position. 3 white contrails approaching from different angles, their guidance systems locked onto her aircraft's massive electronic signature. At the last possible second, she made her move. Now, Torres. Kill everything. The jamming pod went silent. The transponder beacon stopped transmitting. Even non-essential electrical systems shut down. In the span of 2 seconds, the F-15E went from being the loudest electronic target in the sky to being nearly invisible. The missiles, suddenly deprived of their target lock, began searching for alternative radar returns. Their guidance systems found nothing but empty sky. Lauren pulled into a steep dive, using gravity to accelerate her failing aircraft away from the missile intercept point. Behind her, 3 explosions lit up the sky as the missiles detonated harmlessly in empty airspace. All missiles destroyed, Torres called out. Major, that was brilliant. Don't celebrate yet. Check your scope for Mercy Flight. Torres worked his radar controls with practiced efficiency. I've got them. 5 aircraft, 15 miles from the refugee camp, maintaining course and altitude. They're going to make it. Lauren felt something she hadn't experienced in years, pure relief mixed with exhaustion. Her hands were shaking on the flight controls, and she realized she'd been holding her breath for the last 2 minutes. Mercy Flight, this is Hawk 17. You're clear to continue to your destination. Threat has been neutralized. Hawk 17, this is Mercy Flight Lead. We don't know what you did up there, but our threat warning systems show all clear. Whatever it was, thank you. The transport pilot's voice carried more than gratitude, it carried the weight of knowing that hundreds of lives had just been saved by someone they'd never met. Torres, what's our aircraft status? Major, we're in rough shape. Single engine operation, no hydraulics, electrical system failing, and I'm reading possible structural damage from those missile fragments. We need to get on the ground immediately. Lauren scanned the horizon and spotted a runway about 20 miles to the west. There. Forward operating base Bravo. We can make it. Major, without hydraulics, landing is going to be nearly impossible. The gear might not come down, and if it does, we won't have wheel brakes or steering. Then we'll land gear up and slide it in. Wouldn't be the first time. Lauren turned toward the airfield, fighting the manual flight controls every inch of the way. The aircraft wanted to roll left constantly, requiring constant right stick pressure to maintain level flight. Her arms ached from the physical effort of flying without hydraulic assistance. Mayday, mayday, mayday. This is Hawk 17 declaring an emergency. Single engine, no hydraulics, requesting immediate landing clearance at your field. Hawk 17, this is Tower. You're cleared for emergency landing, runway 27. Emergency vehicles are rolling. Lauren lined up with the runway from 5 miles out, knowing she'd only get one chance at this approach. Too high, and she'd overshoot. Too low, and she'd hit the ground short of the runway. Landing gear, she called. Torres activated the emergency gear extension system. They felt the aircraft shudder as the landing gear dropped into position using backup pneumatic pressure. 3 green lights, Torres confirmed. Gear down and locked. No wheel brakes, no nose wheel steering, Lauren reminded herself aloud. This is going to be a long rollout. She crossed the runway threshold at exactly the right altitude and airspeed. The F-15E touched down smoothly despite everything that had gone wrong. Without wheel brakes, the aircraft rolled for nearly a mile before finally coming to a stop. Emergency vehicles surrounded them immediately. Lauren shut down the remaining engine and began the post-flight checklist that she'd completed thousands of times before. Torres, you okay back there? I'm fine, Major. Tired, but fine. How about you? Lauren pulled off her helmet and ran her fingers through sweat-soaked hair. I'm getting too old for this. Major, can I ask you something? Shoot. When you decided to use our aircraft as a decoy, did you think we were going to make it out alive? Lauren considered the question while she watched ground crews examining their damaged aircraft. 3 hours ago, this had been a routine training mission. Now her F-15E looked like it had been through a war. Torres, in 15 years of flying, I've learned that the mission comes first. Those transport planes were carrying medical supplies to people who needed them more than we needed to play it safe. So that's a no? She smiled for the first time all day. That's a no. But sometimes the right thing to do and the safe thing to do aren't the same thing. Through the canopy, Lauren could see 5 distant aircraft approaching the refugee camp. In a few minutes, thousands of people would have clean water, medical supplies, and hope. Her phone buzzed with a text message from her daughter Emma. Mom, saw on the news there was some kind of incident near your training area. Hope you're safe. Love you. Lauren typed back, I'm fine, sweetheart. Just another day at the office. Love you too. Some stories, she realized, were better left untold. At least until they became legends. If you enjoyed Major Lauren Cole's incredible story of courage and sacrifice at 40,000 feet, please hit that like button. It really helps me to bring you more amazing military aviation stories like this one. And if you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest stories featuring the brave men and women who serve the country.